Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Welcome back, everyone. I know I have been away from the podcast a bit here. I have just been needing to focus on some other things for a little while, and I've been really reevaluating what I want to do with the podcast, where I want to take it. So for today, we are going to talk about past lives and themes because that's been something that's been coming up a lot in readings. And it kind of ebbs and flows like the themes that I see in readings. So I'll talk about that too today. But in terms of past lives, I've been really wanting to talk about what's happening during this current cycle. So I've got Eric and I've got my other guides over here, and they want to talk about this a little bit more too. They're actually the ones kind of suggesting it to me. And so I was asking them, like, why are you guys wanting to focus on past lives right now? And so Eric just chimed in and said, I really want to focus on past lives because a lot of people are not understanding how important it is that we are in this current time frame for this current cycle. And he's showing me on a collective level. He keeps saying, look at it like this. And he's showing a Venn diagram. And he said, your previous lifetimes and the soul qualities that you lived out in those lifetimes can show up again and again in your current lifetime. And he said, it's not like it's all there. He's showing me the Venn diagram again, but there could be some overlap. And he said, from a collective perspective, there is collective karma. And he said, this isn't like crime and punishment though. It's more like, he's like, it's not punishment. It's not retribution. It's not, you did bad in this lifetime and now you get to get punished in this one. He said, it's not like that at all. It's more like the energy that you brought forth from a previous lifetime and what you might have chosen to do or experience in that lifetime. You may want to have another shot at certain themes from that past life in this current lifetime. And so what kind of happens is, he said, it's kind of like driving a car. You're going to get off at different exit points on the highway, right? And then you're going to look at a map and you're going to reflect on where you've been and where you want to go. He said, it's kind of like that. And so in this lifetime, he's showing me like groups of people, and he keeps saying there are massive groups of souls that obviously came out of past lifetimes and they want to have a certain experience in this lifetime. He said, sometimes it's kind of like oh man, I didn't quite do that in a certain way in this lifetime. I want to try it again. So he's giving me the example of someone who hurt other people in a past lifetime. And I actually just had someone from the other side come through and talk about this with one of my friends just 2 days ago. This person in a past lifetime had explained to me that they had spent actually a lot of a past lifetime, and they were showing like World War I. They had shot and killed a lot of people. Like, they had no remorse. They were absolutely convinced that they were right for what they were doing. But they were telling me that what they were doing was about being a man. And that it was like, they thought that this was the only way to prove that they were a man, and that there really was that other lives really should and could be taken by them in order to quote unquote win. And then in this lifetime, I don't want to say too much on this person's personal choices in this lifetime, but this is how their soul was explaining it. So for example, their soul in this lifetime had been shot and killed. And they had told me repetitively, it's not necessarily that that's right or that that's okay, but they showed me that the person who had shot and killed them in this lifetime was from the past lifetime, that those souls had kind of like switched places. And so in this lifetime, that person consciously or unconsciously almost like played that opposing force or that other side. And he therefore got the experience of being killed by gunfire by someone else's hand in this lifetime. This person also, I kind of just said like, well, what I think I was kind of like, well, did your soul plan that, or how does that? And he said, not necessarily. And he said, but it's kind of like a karmic cycle. Like, you always have an opportunity for things to shift and change. You have opportunity to make different choices. And he said, in this lifetime, I didn't make different choices. And so he keeps showing me like animosity, creating division, creating fear. He said, I was very power hungry in this lifetime. And so this person took their retribution on him. And Eric's like, yeah, and it kind of can happen like that. And he's like, but the person on earth, they're not always conscious of it. He said, most times they're not. And he said, but you always have a choice to make, you always have the choice. And he's showing different points on a timeline where this person could have made different choices and where they could have said, I don't want to contribute to, I don't want to spout nonsense. I don't want to contribute to hate. I want to be contributing to people finding love and healing. And in some ways, he did have that experience. The other thing that Eric is showing me is like, so it's not always like punishment. It's kind of like cause and effect. And sometimes souls want to play different sides of things. He said, now this isn't true in every case of someone getting killed by someone else, right? He said, for the most part on earth, like really, there aren't souls that come here wanting to kill someone. And he said, but sometimes unconsciously, we might have like a thread from a past life that we kind of feel or draw upon in this lifetime and we don't realize it. And he's like, people were really, really like keen. And he's like, not just like spiritual, but like sensitive. Sometimes they can feel that past life. So they might unconsciously feel hate or anger towards someone in this lifetime. Or they might have an instinct to stay away from someone in this lifetime. And it could come out of a past life. And he said, so there are things that dribble kind of like, he's showing water trickling, like kind of like trickle back and forth, but it's not like a flood. It's just a trickle. And he goes, people who are really attuned to that, they might feel it on an even deeper level. Right. And he said it might become stronger for them, but they don't know where it's exactly coming from. Right. He's also showing me entire groups of people. And he said, so there's a lot of people in this collective who came back at this time who consciously or unconsciously wanted to be part of the shift and the higher awakening and the change that's happening. And he said, but what's happening is a lot of people are remaining incredibly passive right now, or they're afraid. They're letting themselves be fear-mongered. And he said, now again, there's always free will. So they've been giving me messages, and I posted some on TikTok about where the energy could potentially go and some of the things I'm being told and shown. I'm very careful to say in every video I make and like constantly on live streams and constantly here and everywhere else that not everything is set in stone. Just because we speak to certain energy or read certain energy being a certain way or leading toward a certain outcome now doesn't mean it's going to stay there. It could shift or change, sometimes because people are too passive, sometimes because hearing a potential prediction, like a potential outcome, makes people change their actions and they're more likely to make it happen. And sometimes they're less likely to make it happen. They don't act in accordance with it. And so one of the things I'm always really careful about is to say that over and over. Can't control if people listen to it or choose to hear it. But I was like, there's a lot of people who don't make it through the videos that I post, and it's really obvious. And so people like completely disregard that part. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking said this on there. Like, I can't explain this enough times. But so Eric's kind of over here giggling and he goes, yeah, and it creates animosity, right? And he's like, sometimes there's people though where, they need to hear that outcome is in the energy and that it's possible, because they need to be reminded that their soul needs to be reminded of what they're here for and what they're meant to do. But he's like, unfortunately, like we can't provoke people into action. That's not what spirit does. We can't cause them to act. And so he said, so one of the things that's kind of going on right now is a lot of the souls are kind of getting riled up and getting activated and feeling stronger and more powerful. And that's where we see that potential future outcome coming from, of the tides turning and things shifting in the next 3 to 6 months. He's like, but it's not set yet. Like it's kind of like a teeter-totter, which is what I've been being shown. And he said, so that's also part of like a karmic circle, right? And he said, or a karmic cycle. And he goes, a lot of people who are here for this in a past life, perhaps they were also in a war or in some sort of like big, something in their town or their community or in the world or whatever. And maybe in that lifetime they were too passive and they regretted it. And they said, oh, I didn't come here to be passive. I came here to be creative, or I came here to get involved, or, maybe I wasn't supposed to go to war. Maybe I was supposed to speak up for what I thought was right. He said, a lot of people came here to use their voice in this lifetime because they weren't able to in past lives, or they were too afraid to. And so he said, that's going to be a big calling for a lot of people. And he said, when you guys, turn off your tap around what you feel called to say and do and be, that's truly from the heart and your true creative energy. And he said, right now we're going to see speaking out against injustice, people finding creative ways to do that. And he's like showing me SNL and like Jimmy Fallon and stuff. He said, that's a really creative way, right? And I was like, yeah, I love that. Like they're taking humor, they're making skits. And he goes, yeah, it doesn't always have to be fierce. It doesn't always have to be like, fuck you, man. Like, and he's just like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I totally do. He said, it doesn't always have to be so serious. Like he was like, those people reach millions and millions. So he's showing me though, he keeps saying, back to what I was saying, everything can be worked out. And so if you aren't using your creative energy, it's like trying to turn off a tap when that tap is, and the tap is the water is getting backed up because the water pressure doesn't turn off. And the tap is a little bit weak. And he said over time, it's kind of like, then it causes like stagnant water or pressure buildup. And he's like, and then people get sick and sad because they're trying to turn off their natural creative tap, their natural, something that they came here to do or to work on in this lifetime. And he said, like, really that like higher energy, it's not like just woo-woo spiritual stuff. It actually has to do with physics and life force energy. And so it's really important that you guys are expressing yourselves, creating art, contributing to causes you care about, making videos, making skits, writing plays, writing screenplays, getting out there with your kids and playing games, talking about what you need to. And he's showing up to town hall meetings, voting, like whatever it is. He said, whatever you are really feeling called to do. He said, most of you guys didn't come here to have that tap turned off. Maybe your art is an act of rebellion. Maybe your art gets people thinking. Maybe your writing gets people thinking. And he goes, hell, man, if you're scared of retribution, write under a pen name. I mean, he's like, there's different ways to do stuff, right? And I'm going, yeah, I totally see what you're saying. But he keeps showing me people who are, he said, hopelessness creates a festering internal energy, and that's where people get sick and sad. And he's showing me also like stress response. He said, you got to have creativity, you got to have joy, you got to find a way to kind of like let yourself move through the energy, create through the energy. Otherwise, it's going to turn inward. And because that resent, that anger, that stress turns inward on our body, we may think we're always projecting it outward. Like it's at this person, it's at that guy, they did that. But it actually, we really impact our own souls. And he said, you guys also pick up on each other's stress and fear and anger. And he said, that's why you're feeling waves of this in the collective right now. And also the planet is kind of like trying to counteract and kind of counterbalance that. And I've been seeing like a volcano exploding or a natural geyser. I'm wondering if it has to do with like, I don't want to freak people out because I don't know if it's a literal event or more like just something that they're showing me. But one of my friends brought it up years ago, and I have had it pop in my head a couple times since. But I keep thinking about Rocky Mountain National Park and the geysers there, like Old Faithful and stuff. So anyways, but Eric's like, well, yeah, it's like a buildup of pressure and energy. So it's kind of like it comes out through people. Sometimes it comes out through the earth. And he said, we don't want you guys to get too heady about it because it's not always as literal as you think. But he was like, humans are attuned to that stuff. They do sense and feel that stuff even if they don't realize it. And he said, you guys also pick up on each other. So the more that you are meditating and moving and creating, you're giving the energy somewhere to go. You're transmuting it. You're changing it. You're changing the texture and quality of it in your body. The more good you're doing, other people can pick that up and they can pick up that ball and run with it too. And then they feel better and then they're creative and they're, coming up with solutions and stuff. So he wants us to know that that's how we can use our free will really well. And he said, yeah. And so for a lot of you guys with your past life experiences, and he's showing all lifetimes actually happening simultaneously, which is kind of trippy. We don't talk about this a lot on here, but this is something they've always showed me and talked to me about. And I used to talk about it in my classes years ago a lot. But for the sake of people who are kind of newer to that concept, like time is kind of more of an illusion. So really all lifetimes are happening at once. And what we do in the current lifetime actually impacts our past lives and impacts the larger soul quality and soul level. So it's kind of trippy to think about, but that's why you can pick up on your past lives because they're actually still happening at the same time. And so it's very, very interesting to think about. I try not to don't get in your head about it. It's very difficult for humans. Like we think of ourselves very physical and focused here and now. So it's difficult for us to conceptualize that. But he keeps showing like a paper cutout of like where it's a paper chain full of like a human cutout. And he said it's kind of like that, like those gingerbread men or whatever, like human paper chains. He said it's kind of more like that than it is like there's one here and then a separate one there and then a separate one over here. And I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying, or one that goes from this spot to this spot to this spot. So he keeps saying though, he's like, but back to the past life considerations. He said there are many themes that have shown up in past lives for many of you that are here that you'll have in common, like core wounds and also core common goals. And some of them are goals for like humanity or the area that you were born in. Like many of you decided to come to a certain area to be born in a certain area. You wanted to experience certain things and have certain opportunities, and your free will determines what you do with those opportunities. It determines how you react or respond to your circumstances, right? And then he keeps saying, but there are certain things you wanted to come experience, and there's other things that were free will based, so you didn't have any intention of experiencing them. They just happen to be part of the lifetime because of someone else's choices or your own choices. And he keeps showing me how people have so much that they can do and be accomplished still. He said, I don't want anyone to feel hopeless because there's so much more you can do here. And he said, it's kind of like when you get all the ingredients to make the perfect chocolate chip cookies. He's showing a counter with everything on there. And he goes, now some of you are looking at all these ingredients and you're like, man, how can I just eat flour? How can I just eat sugar? I mean, it's sweet, but like I can't just sit here and eat that all day. I can't just eat flour. I can't just eat raw eggs. And he said, that's kind of what's going on for a lot of you guys is you have all the ingredients on the counter. Everything you need is right there. And he said, I promise you guys, I'm not joking. Everything you need is already right in front of you to create the futures that you want. And he goes, but a lot of you are not recognizing that the ingredients need to be put together, that you need to kind of like take some action here, that you're not supposed to just be sitting staring at it, right? And he goes, and what happens is some people are kind of like, I'm going to eat all the chocolate chips. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, damn, like now I don't have the chocolate chips for the chocolate chip cookies. And he said, and that's where your neighbor comes in and goes, here, I've got some extra chocolate chips, man. Yeah, you can borrow some butter or sugar, no problem. As long as I can have a cookie later. And you're like, oh, hell yeah, I'll give you a cookie later. Thanks, man. Like he keeps saying, some of you have forgotten that you guys are connected and that you guys can share and that you guys help each other out all the time. And he said, a lot of you guys are so scared of making the wrong decisions or creating the wrong things that you're not creating anything. And he's showing someone just sitting there looking at the ingredients, and then the ingredients are going bad. And then they're like, now what do I do? Well, now what do I do? And he said, but here's the thing. Here's how humanity works. Here's how spirit and the universe works through people. And he's showing someone who sat there and they freaked out, right? And they were so scared to use what they had, like for whatever reason, and everything festered, the eggs went rotten and everything got icky, and, you know, ants came and took it away and whatnot, and mold grew on it. And he shows this person sitting and they look really like forlorn. And then someone comes up and they go, oh, hey, you need some flour? You need some butter? I've got some stuff. And he's showing the community coming in to give that person little bits of things like, oh, I've got this, and oh, I've got that, and oh, here's a really good recipe. You should try this. And then that person getting kind of that energy back. And he said, this is how humanity is meant to work. It's not all about like, give everything you have. And he said, but a lot of people who have that type of generosity know that there's more. They know that there's more where that came from. So they're not afraid. And then he said, you are seeing how there are certain people in your communities who hoard wealth. And he said a lot of people, when they don't feel like they have enough, they hoard what they have, right? But there are lots of people who would take care of another person in a split second that they saw. And so he keeps showing, he said, this is how the universe is designed to work. This is what you guys came here to experience, is the human connection and the human spirit and creativity and love and, you know, honor thy neighbor. Like he keeps showing how beautiful the universe syncs up and creates. And he said, now what you do with those ingredients though, that's up to you. And he said, that's where your free will is. Okay. And he's showing people experimenting with them and trying different things and, you know, creating new things and then coming upon new ingredients. And he said, those type of people who are the explorers and keep experimenting and go, well, I'm going to use what I got. Let's see what we can make. He said, those people have a generosity of spirit. They have, even if they don't have a lot, right? They have ingenuity. They have a spark in their minds. They're looking, they've got their eyes peeled. They're excited. They're going after it. And he said, these people are the people who welcome new things. And he said, that's what we need you guys to be doing, because you will create the positive future that we have shown you. But if everyone is sitting passively, if everyone just sits in hopelessness and says, this is the end, we're all going to end up in fascism, it's not going to turn around. And you're going to have more time with this, the issues going on that you don't want to have go on will continue. And he said, it's going to take more time. And he said, but you always have choice. And we want you guys to be reignited in that. And he goes, don't think that anything you do is too insignificant or too stupid or too silly. Just because you're one person, he goes, look at how quickly a video can go viral. Look at how quickly, like someone can like ignite change or spark change through poetry or a book, or getting a group of friends together to put their heads together and think through solutions. And he's showing younger people going into political offices, and he said he's showing people changing things in their own unique ways through artistry and local community, and some people stepping up into different positions to change the systems and structures at play. So this is a really real, he said, it's part of the cosmic cycle. It's part of the larger cycle of life. And he said, no matter what, if you're on Earth, don't worry about themes and goals and purpose. He said, just think about it like, am I creating or am I dying and dwindling and consuming? He goes, you're going to croak anyways. May as well use your time well. And he goes, may well enjoy it while you got it here, right? Like maybe may as well make the most of it. And he said, when people think about it that way, they're more productive, not in a like work way, but in like a, like they kind of get it back in touch with their spirit and their soul. He said, your soul is always there in your heart. He's pointing to his chest. And he said, it's always right there, but it's whether or not you feel that connection. Just because you don't feel it or acknowledge it doesn't mean it's not there. Okay. I hope this is helpful for everyone. If you have any questions for the other side, you have questions for Eric. I've been doing Q&As with Eric in Patreon and for my email list and stuff. So if you have questions about anything that you want him to answer about the afterlife or spirit guides, how things work, feel free to email those in from my website. I'll put a link in the show notes. And you can also check out, we have our mediumship mentorship course is starting Tuesday this week. I will give you guys a little bit of extra time to sign up. So just know all the classes are recorded. So if you are like, I don't think I can make this Tuesday class, or you sign up a little bit late, no big deal. You can still watch the replays on the classes and join the little chat group if you choose to. It's a great place to come and ask questions and practice. We'll have some extra little stuff posted in there too. If you have questions about it, just feel free to email me. It's spiritspeaker2022@gmail.com. I don't know why I didn't do spiritspeaker25@gmail.com. Don't ask me. I was in a different frame of mind when I created it, and now it's my business email. So we got to work with what we got to work with. So I apologize for that, but that's what I've just had for a while. But feel free to email me there. I will link that in the show notes as well. And there's places to email me and submit like a contact form and all that on my website. If you have questions about anything, I do have sliding scale systems for the payments too. But this course will be really, really good for people who are just like, I really want to learn how to connect with my loved ones on the other side. It's very beginner mediumship. It's very beginner. If you're like, I just want to talk to my grandma, I just want to talk to my dog, I just want to talk to my spirit guides, I just want to like it kind of depends on what you really, really want. It is not a course in training people on how to be a professional medium, but it will get you started with basic mediumship skills, safety and connection, how to create boundaries, what spirit sounds like, how they connect with us every day. They connect in ways that we often just don't realize or don't know. Like what to do if you're not hearing them, what to do if you're not seeing them, because not everyone does see them or hear them, and not every spirit comes through in a way that we can see or hear. Some of them can't do that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you'll get to learn on there, in there, and we will do tips and practices and all of that fun stuff. So feel free to check it out. I will link it up in the show notes as well. Again, we're starting Tuesday. It's only 6 weeks of classes. So it's like enough information to get you like a good basic beginner understanding and feel pretty confident, get to practice, all that fun stuff. At the same time, it's not so long that it runs into the holidays and is like overwhelming. We will be done by November 11th. That's actually our last class. So again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. And of course, come and join our Patreon group, which will be linked in the show notes if you want to jump in there, do some book clubs, catch up on old little mini classes, videos, updates. I have a bunch of fun stuff that's been posted lately, games, exercises, all that type of stuff. And yeah, I hope that you guys will check it out. And if you do have questions for us for future episodes of the podcast, feel free to submit them online. I also almost forgot to mention, I have got some really fun printables coming out. Some things that you'll be able to buy in print, notepads for tracking your intuition and developing your mediumship skills. I'm so excited to have these coming out soon. If you are interested, make sure you jump into the Patreon group or jump on my newsletter list, because they will be the first ones to find out and to get discount codes and all that fun stuff on these. So they will get first dibs. They will also get to vote on designs and colorways and all that type of stuff. So those I am like so close to having wrapped up and finished. I'm going to be putting them online on an Etsy shop, and then also very likely on my website. So I don't know if I'm going to do TikTok shop yet. I will let people know what I kind of decide and what ends up being easiest. But I'm so excited about them. I'm like really proud of them and how they're turning out. So if that's something that might interest you, just having like a fun notepad where you can like have the same page and just fill it out day to day to day, kind of like a daily intuitive sign tracking sheet or messages from the other side tracking sheet, to help you with your development. And then you can go back and like look at all of what you've accomplished and everything later. I plan to have those out before the holidays. So if you're interested, again, jump on my e-newsletter list, which is linked up in my website, or jump in the Patreon, because they will find out first and get first dibs. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. But thanks again for jumping in here, guys. And I hope that this episode was fun for you.